SCB Global is more than just a collaboration company. We are connecting businesses around the world with one conversation at a time. Welcome to the Team Me Up podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Team Me Up podcast. This is your host, Nabil Mahmood with SCB Global. Today, I'm joined with Shams Khan, who is our Vice President of, I can't even start the amount of effort that Shams puts in and the amount of business units that he's engaged in. So, Shams, welcome to the podcast. Now, I actually made a statement in one of the recent interviews that I was on that email is going to be gone relatively very quickly. Okay, it's sort of very disruptive statement. Now, in talking to you and working with you over the last few years, we talk about at SCB communication revolution, and I believe the days of the emails are going to be gone. We're going to have the unified platform, and that's kind of like the value that we bring forward to the marketplace. Could you expand on what communication revolution means from a strategic perspective, and what is the future of communication in the very near future?
Yep, absolutely. I think a couple of points here before we go into that topic of what is communication revolution. There's a prerequisite to understand. So my, anecdote that I shared about what happened in the space of 1992 till where we are now with technology is important and imperative to understand. Right from Alexander Graham Bell, things were running for the same way until the birth of internet occurred, and the ability for us to maximize or augment that pipe for us to even now meet like this, right, has been thankfully because of that same reason. The consolidation approach and the bringing those communication, collaboration, and customer experience, there has been a drive. It's not a new phenomena. But what we at SCB from a strategic standpoint are seeing, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of applications, a lot of tools being built, and customers are spending a lot of their time between two things. That's apps and tabs. And obviously that results in silos that can be created. SCB's role of the communication revolution is, while, everybody recognizes that this is the way to go, how do we make it simple? How do we make it an orchestrator that allows the customers efficiency-enabled applications to truly drive efficiency, to truly augment that experience, truly optimize that experience around the communication? Because as we know, the way people communicated before and the way they communicate now is constantly changing and evolving. So for us to keep up with our rate of change and evolution for this revolution is going to be important that we build something that is scalable and malleable, but also sticks to the core, that is the technology stack that customers will tend to embrace or tend to have. So that is the key part here for our people to understand when we talk about communication revolution. What does that mean, and where we are going to take this to the next iteration? So there is terminologies that you will hear, and I'm trying to keep it non-technical here. UCaaS, which is Unified Comms as a Service. What does that mean? It means different things to different people. There is CCaaS, there is CPaaS. All of these terms mean different things to different people. What the real core crux of the matter is, how I communicate with you or my customers should be flexible. So I should be able to use the optimal channel or a path for me to interact. Like even now in my personal life, I don't send a lot of messages. I send a lot of voice notes, just because I find I'm able to describe and explain the situation more effectively. And there are many more people like that who probably want to do the same thing. So that is an element of communication revolution for you to be able to benefit and kind of maximize that. You need to understand the background and the human element of that as well. So you can take everybody on that journey, because everybody has different preferences. So it should not be an omni-channel play. It should be an opti-channel play.
Where do you think the future of, and as we are defining as SCB, the communication revolution, where do you think the future of communication is? What's next? What's the next big thing?
I think the next iteration, in my view, and from an SCB's perspective, is there is never going to be one size fits all. It's going to be something that is absolutely flexible, hybrid, allowing the optimum path for the users. It's not going to be a traditional, pick up the phone and make a call to a number. Number will become just an avatar for some people, or click someone's name and that's the calling. What happens inside or in the background, the magic and all of that, the end user will not care. What the end user will care is, I want to speak to Nabil or I want to speak to Shams. I click on this and it should just work, or I am able to click on it and send a voice note and it should just work. That's the sort of communication layer that I personally envisage happening. And it will happen fast, thanks to what happened in 2020, which was an unfortunate event, but that kind of stemmed and forced a lot of people, because human beings don't like change, and it forced everyone to think of this as a matter of need, which was something that a nice to have has become a need now.
So, that's actually a very interesting point right now. We talk about, as an organization, like what we have done is unified the platforms.
Yep.
For instance, before people used to use emails, and then you used to use other platforms for collaboration. And then you got a platform for document sharing, from Active Directory days to Teams and that unified integration, like, federated services.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, and I'm hearing this, folks, Shams probably saying something around this line, or at least this is my interpretation of it, that no matter who, what, where, and what platform one is using, you're going to be able to just click on an icon, an avatar, and it's going to be able to give you the ability to connect with that person. So it could be our platform as Teams, it could be something else. There is going to be that utility model whereby it doesn't really matter what platform somebody's on in the back end, the front end will interact.
And that is what we envisage. So Opto, referring to business transformation, workplace transformation, or Opto, optimizing the path, or being that orchestrator, being that fusion that bridges the different channels. Like I said to one of the customers the other day, like, your end users don't really care how things are working. They just want to know that it works. And that's all they really care about. And SCB is that engineering arm and an entity, if you like, that will allow those customers to kind of come together, whether you want to call it interop, or whether you want to call it the ability to do a dip of that customer journey, because it's all about use cases. So it becomes a result-driven outcome, where we can bring that information. A lot of people are talking about AI. AI has not something that has just come up randomly. It has existed as a machine learning capability, but it's just the capability of those machines are becoming faster, bigger, and better. We're able to do a lot more transactions for us to get some outcomes or data points. So data is going to be the currency that people would want, and how you get that data is something is a big challenge. And SCB wants to be in that space of being that utility and endpoint that allows you to either access the data or interpret the data or do something with that data. That could be a voice packet. It could be a simple record entry of that particular user, or it could be a video interaction and taking a feed from that video interaction, which is again data at the end of the day. So I think that's where the world is going to move to, and what you can do with that data, I think those companies are going to be the ones ahead of the curve.
Wonderful. So, I do talk about data rush, right? That's the era that we are in. One last question that I've got for you. So with all of this, fun stuff and unifying the technology and the platforms, one thing that really comes forth is security, right? We've talked about it at the physical layer. We've talked about it at the data movement layer. But now voice is actually becoming an integral part of it, right?
Yep.
Voice is becoming a part of the data rush era.
Yep.
And with everything that's going on with NLP, with AI, with machine learning, with automation, with doppelgangers and digital twins and deep fake, are there any potential security concerns that we need to start looking at today and addressing today?
I think, I remember when I was in university thinking of my dissertation, there was a discussion around, is cloud computing a blessing or a curse, and there's like the whole discussion around your data is now going to be taken away. And there's another side point was somebody stole my laptop, and that's how I ended up thinking about there must be a way of storing this data in the cloud. So I ended up being in the cloud space as well. So that data storage and then going out somewhere, naturally, there, anything that you build, there's always going to be the rise of bad actors. So from an SCB play perspective and from a customer's perspective, there is absolutely going to be proactiveness needed, because the rate of the change of technology being evolving, as you know, in your own mobile apps, every few weeks you get a new update. So you got to be mindful of that. But SCB, again, thinking about this from a perspective that when we are delivering technology and solutions to our customers, it needs to be compliant and it needs to be secure, and it needs to be delivered in the most simplistic consumption model. So we have solutions around that as well for data leak prevention, ethical wall, allowing us to make sure and ensure what needs to be shared and what does not need to be shared. And if it does happen, how can we proactively, cut our losses or curb the situation? And more importantly, notify, because that is going to be the best outcome that we can achieve. Firstly, proactively kind of deal with it versus being reactive. So that's the area. And one of the other things, what we really like as an organization working with Microsoft is Microsoft's investment in this space of billions of dollars, right? Where when it comes to ensuring that the customer gets that comfort, peace of mind. So we have taken that approach for our core to be within that ecosystem and fabric, and obviously the customer can benefit from that when they're transacting with us, which is again a value point for customer to consider, considering the point that you highlighted about the bad actors and doppelgangers.
Yeah. Well, Shams, thank you very much for taking the time. I mean, this conversation can go on and on and on forever. Not that I'm as techie as you are in the voice area, but I think this is the future, right? I mean, centralized communication and the communication revolution that we have started at SCB and our collaboration and partnerships with the likes of Microsoft and others, we are taking communication to the next level. And I believe where we're at in this point of time, this is just the beginning. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. This was Nabil Mahmood, your host at SCB Global Team Me Up podcast. Follow us. Stay tuned for more fun stuff to come.
Join the revolution. Find out more at scb-global.com.